Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday morning meeting of the BOCC. We get started. We can start with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. One nation under God, liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll start. I'll ask Commissioner Mortensen to review the minutes for us.
Good morning, everyone. I reviewed the minutes of the activities last week and I move to approve those minutes.
Okay. Any comments, corrections to the minutes?
I have none.
I see none. Call for the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also vote aye. Thank you. I'll run down the consent agenda today, but I will point out we have 3 public hearings today. One at 9:30 with Health and Human Services. One at 9:45 from the Commissioner's Office and one at 10 o'clock with from Office of Financial Management. So I'll try to be respectful of those times for sure. Consent agenda. First one, prospectus and supplement number 1, Washington Department of Transportation. It's on the Eric Creek Fish Passage project. It's basically extending the time of that one. It's had some delays through easements, the securing easements. So it's been extended there, and the way it's had some accounting in there that basically came from Washington State requested and how we do that. Supplemental agreement with OTAC on the Allender Road Stillwater Creek Fish Patches project. That agreement is being extended to December of 2024. No increase in project costs on that one.
So, Mr. Chairman, before you go on, I just wanted to note that for those who aren't aware, Eric Creek is a major tributary for Abernathy Creek. So that's west of town. And it should open about 10 miles of fish-bearing streams that is currently blocked by the current setup.
Yeah.
And Allender Road is near Riderwood, so up in the north end of the county. Sorry.
Nope. Agreement with PPC Solutions for security service for the administration, the annex, museum, and the health buildings and elections. That's our resolution to close county maintained fund number 69501 on behalf of Cowlitz Community Network. Cowlitz Community Network has moved from a quasi-municipal entity to a nonprofit status. So they'll handle their own accounting. And 2 letters from Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. These basically are letters between them and Pacific Corp, and we get copies of everything. On one is a design change on the spillway installation project, and the other map updates, inundation map updates. Vouchers in the amount of $8,370,938.31. And that's it for consent agenda. Any questions on consent?
Morning, Commissioners. On the board correspondence B, inundation map updates, inundation regarding what type of scenarios would would that be referring to?
Dam failure.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's just kind of the base map of where a failure would affect.
and is that, would that be available to the public?
I believe so. All,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure all these documents are. We didn't get those maps. We just got a notice that they're available, and it's
Okay,
the
thank you very much.
federal agencies.
That's rather
But-
important, I suppose.
It's of particular concern to the city of Woodland.
Any other questions, comments on consent? I don't see any hands.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve today's consent agenda as presented by staff.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. One last call for questions, comments. I see none. I will call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
I,
Also vote aye. Thank you. Couple motion items today, one with Human and Health Services.
Good morning, Gina James, Health and Human Services. We have a contract agreement on the agenda today to address an issue we've been having at our building. We have this nice little alcove area in the front of our building, and we've had some pretty consistent issues with individuals sleeping there and creating messes, starting fires and whatnot. So we've been working with facilities to figure out a way to address that. So we went out to bid a couple times to have a door installed that we can close when our building is closed and open when our building is open to the public to eliminate some of these challenges we've had. So we don't have to call facilities to come and clean up. So I don't know if Will has anything to add, but.
The only thing I can add is just the amount of calls. It's a weekly occurrence after a weekend. We've mitigated it as best as we can, and I think this is the next step. There was 2 flower pots that were used as restrooms or same thing, fire starter. We removed those, and I think that this is a need for their building for building security.
just a comment that it's ironic that the HHS has a dedicated effort to help these people and they get repaid by this. So, unless there are questions, Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion.
I don't see any hands, so.
My only question is, doesn't really relate to this. Do you anticipate something similar, a similar solution for the museum? They also have that same kind of continual problem, just the way that the back door is designed just facilitates that misuse.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we'd like to see how this goes first and then potentially roll it out to, other areas, the museum, the annex, same thing every morning. There's people that have slept over the weekend that have started fires, done graffiti. So I think this is the first step. We'd like to see how it goes and potentially move it elsewhere.
Along those lines, the parking lot in the museum at one time had been a place to find this also. Are you, do we see abuse of the parking lot also?
I haven't got much complaints about the parking lot, mostly just the little back entrance.
Right, and the front?
Not much on the front either.
The front has a nice overhang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, quick question. So you're gonna put a roll-up door at the front of the building? So how much does the door cost?
I have that. So the total quote came to 31,123.49. And that's with tax.
My favorite part with tax. Okay, just wondering.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the bid award and contract agreement with Fieldworks Collaborative for the installation for an exterior roll-up door at the Cowlitz County Health and Human Services Building. The total amount has been discussed.
We have a motion on the floor. Just scanning for questions, comments. See none, no. Call for the vote. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Also vote aye. Thank you, Gina. Commissioner's office.
Bailey Silva, Public Records Officer in the Commissioner's Office. Today I'm presenting to you a policy regarding records retention. This is a countywide policy. With this policy in place, there's specifics on what departments should be doing in order to be compliant with retention, such as following the local government common records retention schedules.
If I'm a citizen and I do a record request, does this have any impact on me?
Right now, when the county tends to keep things more than get rid of them according to the records retention schedule, if we have records, we do have to produce them in a public records request. So sometimes it takes a little bit more time to fulfill a public records request when you're sifting through more records than necessary because they could have been destroyed according to the state. So it could have an impact on timelines of producing records.
So right now, without a retention policy established, all emails from the beginning of time, when we had emails, are subject to search requests, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
that, of
correct.
course, is, all the various different forms of media and that we've used those for. And not just for the three of us, but for all previous commissioners. The law does allow us to have reasonable limits that cut down on the expenses, because it is pretty expensive. We can't charge enough money to cover the costs of staff time to look up all of the accounts. But so can you just share a little bit about some of the recommended times? How far back typically could we go, say, for emails?
So the biggest thing with emails is a lot of emails are considered transitory. About a third of emails are considered transitory, and transitory records have no retention value. So those can just be destroyed within, 24 hours. Like, hey, are you in today? That can be destroyed, or there's donuts in the break room. Those sorts of emails don't need to exist, but our current practices are that they do exist forever. So in the future, we would need to work on getting rid of those. This policy won't necessarily, it will help our IT department and I work together to get what we need to in order for those things to occur. But right now, we are keeping everything.
So from the standpoint of a citizen who had submitted a records request, this should manifest itself at least over time in improved response, but their method to access you is still the same.
Yes.
Nothing there changes.
Yep. Nothing changes the way that someone wants to submit a request, but what will potentially change in the future is public records staff spending less time reviewing records that don't need to exist.
Yeah, and there's been discussion about how much stays here and how much goes to the state for archive. Could you make a comment, just a blanket kind of comment?
Yeah, so there's three things that happen with records. So some can just be destroyed and then some are considered archival. So records that are considered archival, they'll be transferred to the state. So if someone wanted those records, they would then submit a request to the state archives, not the county.
So who decides what is archival?
The state
Is-
does.
The state does.
Yep.
Within that, though, how do you know that how does a department here know that they're not producing archival material?
They have to look at the records they are producing, and find them within the local retention schedule. And then that retention schedule explains to them the necessary steps on what to do with those records.
And that is what you're describing in the policy, but the departments have to come to you and provide you that information. It isn't you yourself who says, well, this is archival.
Yeah, no, I will not be making that decision. Yeah,
Yeah.
working with departments to determine where their documents fall within the retention schedule and then doing the appropriate.
Any other questions? Might add, most every business in town has a retention schedule on things, so.
Does this process create new state and county positions that have to be filled now?
No,
It,
We-
it depends on how you ask that question and when the time epoch did you ask that question? Maybe 10 years ago, I'm just using that as an arbitrary timestamp. We did not, at some time in the past, we did not have the constraints we have now about you got to respond here and you got to do this and that. Those requirements that come down from Olympia exposes to a lot of extra effort. For that, we've had to spend staff time on it and just to make sure that we're consistent. We have a PRO, a public records officer. That's kind of a new spot. So yeah, it's costing you.
So the public records officer is not new, but there's a records analyst and records coordinators. And none of these are new. They're already existing.
Yeah, those positions already exist. The public records coordinators in each departments are actually, they have other job titles. They just take on that task of being the one to facilitate records to me or the public records analyst so we can respond to requests because they know their department records more than I would.
What kind of time obligation is this for you to go, to be doing this? How much time is dedicated to this basically by each department?
We have had to hire staff to
Manage this.
respond to the, public records request law. That's been obvious. And Bailey is one of those positions that we've actually hired. 5 years ago, we didn't have that position filled at all. And those coordinators in all the different departments are sort of doing their own thing, but we didn't have a retention policy. So it was like everything, had to review everything. Hopefully, this will make it more efficient and effective when we get requests from citizens.
A key issue to note here is in all that we do, there is absolutely complete intent to make important things available to the public. And my email to Bailey about going to lunch isn't going to encumber you with hundreds of those emails and only one piece of important information. In other words, I see continual improvement to be transparent and give you the important stuff. Problem with any piece of information is if it's swamped by garbage, we could deceive you. And our intent is completely opposite of that.
So if I put in a freedom of information request for something that falls underneath this, is the determination on whether I get it and how soon I would get it fall locally or from the state?
We would make that decision within the county based on when we can provide you the records.
Okay,
So I think you have 5 days to make a response on how we're going to handle it.
Yeah, we have 5 days to provide you records, tell you a date that you would receive records by, deny the request, or produce installments. Or ask for
Oftentimes there are
clarification.
oftentimes there are records that include private data, birth date, social security, those have to be redacted. And so there again is one of those areas that we have to spend staff time redacting the areas that the state law says we can redact. And it's all a matter of following state law.
Yeah, actually.
But one of the reasons we want to be, we're kind of hesitant about saying, you know, we're not going to hire any more staff is because the state continues to add rules and regulations that require us to generate documents. There, we may end up having to, just because of the sheer volume of demands that come down from the state. It's kind of stunning.
The redaction effort cannot be underestimated. It is huge, and basically it's there for the protection of the innocent, if you will. And it's sort of like the Fifth Amendment. We don't want to throw something out there that'll cause people harm. Upcoming is the body camera stuff. You can't send that out without going through redacting it. Yeah, you know, maybe there's an event and there's a bystander there who doesn't want to be seen outside of the store or something like that. You know, it's a huge effort.
Okay.
How many, do you know offhand, how many open requests do we have?
Currently countywide, including the sheriff's department, which does receive, I would say about 50% of requests. We have 100 open public records requests.
How many?
100.
We get a lot of requests there.
But your clearance is substantial too, isn't it?
Oh yeah, we're constantly closing them out and then receiving new ones. So it's fluctuating on a daily basis.
Thank you.
One last comment.
Okay.
People shouldn't think that you're going to get what you would like in 5 days. That could happen, but very often we need more time to do the redacting and to do all the collection of the data. So on average, if I send you a request today, I will receive a response that says, we got it. And you might engage them in saying, you've made a very broad search. Can you narrow it down a little bit more?
We cannot ask requesters to narrow we can't force anybody to narrow their request, but we can ask for clarification, and if they do narrow it, they may, but we can't ask somebody to, yeah.
And your request can be anonymous. You don't have to say anything about who you are.
I also should point out that it's one of these areas that we pay particularly attention to try and follow the RCW, because there's actually people out that file requests all over the state and they look for anything that's not done right, and then they sue and take a little pocket full of money with them as they go. They make a living out of it. So it's one of those areas as Commissioner Weber pointed out, we need to pay close attention to state RCW on this and try to follow.
Thank you.
Any other question, comments? I don't.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the resolution rescinding number 84-118 and 02-118 and establishing a new records retention and management policy.
We have a motion on the floor. Just looking, I don't see any hands. Okay, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Thank you, Bailey.
Thank you.
We have public hearing coming up in 6 minutes, but until then, this afternoon at 1:30, we have Callant's chaplaincy in, if people are interested in that. Tomorrow at 1:30, we have Health and Human Services. I think they're back with developmental disabilities, and the Humane Society contract. We'll take a look at that tomorrow afternoon.
If I may, I want to encourage people to show up to, if they don't know about the chaplaincy, this is an opportunity. It's quite the organization.
That's this afternoon at 1:30. So we have anybody have a comment or anything? We got a couple minutes. What do we got, 5?
Our auditor has her hand up.
Oh,
I just have a quick question
Sure.
about the fish project, fish passage projects. Does that run a risk of any flooding to the area as they change the way the water moves through these areas?
I can't imagine that they'd have to have some safeguards on that.
I think if anything, it probably helps. The
Probably
flooding
helps, 'cause
Situation.
Most of the time you're taking blockages out versus putting any blockages in. Uh,
The thing that's always interesting to me is this is probably gonna get me into trouble. We don't look holistically at an issue. So we spend a fortune on stuff and we don't ever look back and say, how did we do on that? Did we really increase the fish population? Do we really know where the mortality of fish are? But basically they spawn up the rivers, but they go out to the ocean. And of 100% that go out, we're what, well, Dennis, what number comes back? Typically 5%?
The single digit percentage wise, yeah.
Yeah, and all the sea lions along the way have a happy time.
And the cormorants.
Yeah.
And the
I see-
cormorants.
Yeah, I see Carolyn. You want to take a couple minutes?
Yes, thank you very much. I was looking for an opportunity where you might have a few extra minutes. So I'm coming before you once again, your audience, to seek interested parties in serving on against committees. We have an almost countywide election coming up on February 13th. Every school district in the county, with the exception of Kalama School District, is participating. So roughly 66,000 registered voters are going to participate. And unfortunately, I had 4 of those districts fail to appoint against committees. So when the jurisdiction fails in appointing, that responsibility falls to me. And I've had a lot of success with a couple of minutes on this public meeting in soliciting interested parties. So anybody that is interested in serving on the Longview School District levy, the Toutle Lake School District levy, the Castle Rock School District levy, or the Kelso School District levy, please contact the elections office. I do have an interested individual that is willing to either serve or collaborate with other persons. He isn't a Cowlitz County resident or voter, although he doesn't have to be according to the statute. And I think it's in the best interest to get registered voters in Cowlitz County, but as a backup, he's willing to serve. So thank you for the time and go ahead.
Question? When you just said thank you for the time, what are your time constraints on this effort?
So I'm asking anybody that's interested to contact the elections office or me by 5 p.m. tomorrow, and we will work with you on setting a realistic new deadline. So the jurisdictions had until December 15th to appoint, and they have missed that deadline. I issued a press release. I put the information on the website, and I rarely ever get any interested parties other than at this meeting. So I appreciate the couple of extra minutes to get the word out there. So anybody interested, stop by the elections office or my office on your way out of the meeting, please.
So Caroline, I'm assuming those districts all have committees writing yes statements. Your requests are for the committees that would be on the opposite side, opposed
Correct.
to the levies. Okay.
They have an obligation under the law to appoint both, and 4 of the 5 districts failed to do so.
Okay. Thanks, Carolyn.
Thank you.
A quick question, Carolyn, is that frequently the case where the one side gets dropped?
Yeah, I would say historically, it doesn't amount to anything other than frustrated voters when they open up their local voters pamphlet and they see a blank page that says no statement submitted. I can't force people into meeting the standard of the law. And so it typically kind of works out best for districts by failing to appoint. So it just takes people that are willing to participate and be active. And I guess while I'm on here, I'll throw out there that we only need one person's name and contact information. You can collaborate anonymously. You do not have to be printed in the local voter pamphlet. We have a lot of options if you have some interest and maybe just don't want your name and information printed in the pamphlet.
Okay.
So stop by elections.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll head into public hearings. First one, Human and Health Services.
Hey, Gina James again, Health and Human Services. Today, for this public hearing, it's a Community Development Block Grant closeout. So this was a Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG grant that the county participated in. This one goes back a little bit. It was first brought to us early in the pandemic to help with rent, mortgage, and utility assistance. This particular grant was a collaboration with the cities, where the state allocated funding to each city in our jurisdiction, as well as the county as a whole, with the exception of the city of Longview, because they receive CDBG funds directly. So we worked with the cities on this grant. Each city had an allocation of funding where individuals who resided in those cities, if they applied for assistance, then it came out from that city's allocation of funding. So we partnered with Lower Columbia CAP to help with this, administer the grant and provide the assistance. The eligibility for this particular grant, there was income requirements. Individuals had to be at or below 80% of the area median income, and they also had to have a demonstrated impact from COVID. Most of the applicants for this particular assistance were individuals who had work hours cut or were laid off due to closures of businesses and whatnot. The grant total was a little over $285,000. We spent $213,000 of that. And we served 71 households with this assistance. There was a maximum limit, so individuals could only apply for up to 6 months of assistance with this grant. The majority of applicants were for rent and utility assistance. We did have about 10 households that applied for mortgage assistance with this. The average assistance provided for mortgage assistance was about $1,300 per month for an average of 3 months. So individuals applying for that assistance, that was the average they were requesting, and for about 3 months of the time period. For rent assistance, the average was about $880 a month, and again, for 3 months of assistance. And for utility assistance, it was an average of $164 a month for closer to 4 months of assistance. We did see some individuals come back and request assistance twice, but it couldn't be any more than that 6 months of assistance in total. So they could have requested 3 months of assistance and then came back down the road, and they would have only be eligible for 3 months for the total of 6.
So just to be clear, this source of funding is different from the ARPA-related funds that were much more extensive, with whom we also partnered with CAP for administration.
Yeah, they're two very different programs and funding streams. for this. This was a much smaller, kind of more focused assistance. We didn't end up utilizing all of it. I think because it was more stringent, and then we also had, you know, the other rent assistance in the community as well. It did go to a variety, similar to the other programs, that the assistance is issued to the third party, so directly to the utility company, directly to the mortgage company, or directly to, we saw a variety of private landlords and property management companies for the rent piece of this as well. So I'll pause there and see if there are any questions. The closeout is to just kind of share this type of information about the grant. The grant has ended. We have a closeout document that asks for the chairman's signature just to kind of close the book on the grant, so.
So, in a time sequence, we had the CARES money and the ARPA money.
Mhm.
Where in that time epoch did this program exist?
This one came very first. So it was, I think it was about August of 2020. And the other assistance then came in down the road from that. I can't remember exactly the time frame, but this one was very first, and it actually was, the grant was open through the early part of this year, so.
And the subsequent CARES and ARPA money were much larger
Mhm.
funds, and yet we weren't able to spend everything on the CDBG. And I think you explained that, just they were more stringent in the rules.
Mhm.
And specifically, any one point, I remember stuff about you had to tie it to the COVID stuff, but then we loosened that up as time went on.
Each of the programs looked a little different. And yeah, this particular one, there had to be a demonstration of how you were impacted by COVID. And for most of them, I was looking back through the documents. Most of the individuals that received assistance through this, it was layoffs. They, you know, were working 2 jobs and got laid off from one of them. Their work hours were reduced, their business closed, they had childcare issues because childcare was closed, that type of thing.
Any other questions from us? We'll open public hearing for any public comments or questions on it.
So exactly how much is left over and what happens to that money?
There was $72,375 remaining, and so that it just remains at the state. We don't draw that down.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. I see no others. Close public hearing on that.
And do we need a motion to authorize you to go ahead and sign off?
Probably be good. Do you need that or you just,
I just need the chairman's signature on the closeout document. I don't know if that needs a motion or not, but.
You go for
it. As a policy, we sort of the chairman will sign with approval of the board. Otherwise, the chairman will not
Yeah.
sign, right? That will, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I don't sign unless you guys are good with it.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I'll work with Kelly on that. Yeah, okay, thank you.
We can open up. We have about 5-6 minutes. That clock's, I'm going by my computer clock. That one's different up there, so. See none. We can take a short recess. We'll be back at 9:45. Okay, we're back from recess. Next, public hearing, Commissioner's Office, once again.
Bailey Silva, Public Records Officer for the Commissioner's Office. Today, I'm presenting to you the body worn camera cost study. That's what this public hearing is about. If approved, it will allow departments to charge for redaction time when releasing a body worn camera to the public under the Public Records Act. This is Julie Harris, Records Manager.
Sorry, Julie Harris, Records Manager for the Cass County Sheriff's Office.
So earlier today, we were talking about the retention policy and we talked about the role that redactions play as we try to comply with what state law allows us to exclude for the sake of privacy. Can you share with us a little bit more about how elaborate that is? Julie, do you do that redaction as part of your job?
Yes, I do.
How extensive can it become on some of these body camera things?
So generally, I had one disclosure. It was not even a criminal offense. 4 officers responded. Each officer had about an hour, 15 minutes of video. And then also had dash cam video along with that. So it's pretty extensive because you have to review the entire video for any proper redactions to be made and then apply those redactions.
And just for example, what would some of those redactions be?
So some of the main redactions would be going into anybody's residence, medical facilities, jail facilities, passcodes that are entered on a computer or a phone, personal text messages from an officer to his spouse. Those would all be redacted. A deceased body would be redacted. Juveniles potentially could be redacted.
So pretty time consuming.
Yes.
Yeah.
This policy gives us the ability to be compensated a little bit for that time.
Yeah, it will allow us to charge people who are not able to get it for zero cost. So the law
Right.
does lay out people who have access to the records.
Yeah, that's a good point. There is a list of people that are directly affected, so to speak, that they just get it. But if it's Rick Dahl wants to see what happens over there and he had nothing to do with that, I need to pay for your time on that. Yeah,
But if you're on the camera,
then I get it for
You get
free.
free.
Yeah. If a person is directly affected by whatever is being requested and they need a copy of it, there's no charge to them. If I, as an unaffected person, just wants to see it out of curiosity, then I need to pay for some of that work.
So I'm afraid that we've just barely begun to tap how much it's gonna cost us to handle this situation. Maybe Bailey, you could say what the numbers are here today regarding what the fee might be.
So based on the cost study that I worked with Julie to create, we would charge 55 cents per minute of redaction time. So if it took an hour, we would do 55 cents times 60.
So if I, as a voyeur, ask for something, I'm gonna pay 55 cents per minute.
Did you say as a lawyer?
I beg your pardon?
Can you repeat what you said?
Oh, if I'm a arbitrary party, not involved, just kind of enjoying myself and I ask for something, how much will I pay? The 55.
Yep, 55 cents per minute. So that'll be determined based on the specific request that's being fulfilled.
Okay, and it'll be your judgment as to how much the span of time is, right? Because the officer recorded an hour on this example that Julie gave. So for that hour, I might pay, I might get 20 minutes worth.
Yeah, that's how it'll work. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And And then what happens if I ask, and all this was done, and then Rick Dahl, a non-interested individual, wants the same thing? Does he get charged also?
I believe if a redacted copy exists and a second individual asks for it, they do not have to pay. So they would get the redacted copy free of charge because that record now exists. Unless it needs review for different redactions based on that individual.
Yeah, that's interesting. There may be some, I can appreciate whether we do it or not, because I think we're going to be operating at a great inconvenience in this. And when I say great inconvenience, I'm not talking about the staff being inconvenienced. They're doing a job, but the public coming in is going to be inconvenienced by all kinds of arbitrary random requests, like the National Enquirer might put in a records request for everything all the time. I don't know how we would deal with that. So if they had to pay regardless of if somebody else had, then that might have a different effect. Anyhow, it's like everything else. We have a policy that you're advocating, and we will keep an eye on that, watch it, and we can modify it as feedback arises on that. Julie, do you have an estimate of what this store, how many hours of this are you folks anticipating, hours of just the raw video coming in?
So we just implemented our body worn cameras within the last couple of months, so I don't have a really good idea. I do know, like I said, the one incident that I did look into, and it was an eviction, so not even a criminal offense, and there was 4 officers on scene with an hour and some minutes of video to review. So it's pretty extensive. If we have a major incident and we have multiple officers responding, including detectives, we could have 10 or more officers of video to review, and a bigger timeline of video as well.
So each of the 4 officers had video that you had to review.
Correct.
Of the same situation. Okay.
Correct.
I think it may be useful to have someone in the department help you and actually estimate that, because you've got enough history of incidences and all that you could say, okay, assuming, and you could produce a number, because I am terribly afraid it's going to be a huge number. And that factors into IT costs, personnel costs, and in redacting, is it only you, or will the officer have to help with the redacting?
No, the officers will not do any redaction. It'll be all within the
Hands off
records department.
completely?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the figure that you've mentioned, 55 cents per minute, is that what is provided by state law? And that it has to be a reasonable charge? Or could it be
So-
higher?
Yeah, it could be higher. I would say that's pretty on average with other agencies, including like City of Longview, City of Kelso, and then other neighboring agencies. People like King County are a little bit higher. But the cost was determined based on the step 1 of a record specialist in the sheriff's office. It's the lowest paid employee in the records department, plus medical benefits. So that's how that became about. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And that leads me to ask, some police departments will be using you for the video?
No,
The video they take would come to you?
no. So if unless we house that video, then we would do the redaction on it. If it is like Longview Police's body worn, then they would disclose their own body worn camera.
But they've already sort of separated from our record keeping, but City of Castle Rock. It's the same answer.
Same answer. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from us? I don't see any. Open public hearing for any questions, comments from the public.
So I have two questions. The first one is follow through with, you're talking about 4 different sheriffs with an hour and 15 minutes of video. The ultimate charge would be for 75 minutes per officer, 75 minutes times 10 for 10 minutes for each minute reviewed, right? So as you stack that up for that one incident, you got 4 officers, 75 minutes times 4 is 300 times 10 is 3,000 minutes. That would be times the 55 cents, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so it's not a matter of how much video they get at the end. It's a matter of how much time you spend reviewing what's available. Correct?
It's the amount of time spent applying the redactions,
Right.
actually not the amount of time reviewing the video. It's just applying the redactions. Because there might be, say you have a 2-hour video from law enforcement and 30 minutes of it is redactable. That's what you would base it on. It's that 30 minutes, not the whole video, because most of it, or 3/4 of it would be releasable based on what's in the video.
Okay, let me walk through this. So out of that hour that we're just using for round number, 60 minutes, if you only had to redact 10 minutes of it, I'm only gonna get charged for the 10 minutes?
My understanding was you pay for what was handed to you. 10 minutes of video. Is that right? It may have taken you 8 hours to produce the 10 minutes of video, but I can't, as a citizen making the request, I can't have an unknown charge that'll come to me. I have to know that.
And you will be provided the amount prior to the record being produced.
Yeah.
So like the way that it works with disclosure is upfront, you would be provided how much it's going to cost, and then a 10% deposit would be required prior to producing the document. So you would be aware of the cost that you would then pay.
So let me make that really clear. If I made a request and I paid $5 and it's the same amount of material as someone else who made a request and got that same amount of material on a totally different feed, we would both be paying the same amount, even though it may have taken twice as much backroom time for my request than, say, her request.
No, you would be provided a cost based on how long it took your specific video
Interesting.
to be redacted.
Okay, so I guess as I read this, the explanation says 15 minutes of raw footage needing redaction. Is that the possibility out of a 1-hour video that there's only 15 minutes that
Yeah.
needs redaction?
hmm
I see, okay. Question number 2.
But
what happens-
if I might, out of the hour, you already have to do a redaction to find out that you got to do redaction.
Yeah, we can't charge for the review of that body cam.
Oh, okay. Apologies.
No, no worries. What happens in the event of a multiple agency response? If you have Calais County Sheriff and you have Longview and Kelso Police all on the same scene, is that redaction going to, because I go to the county sheriff and I say, I want that video, is that redaction going to eliminate the other agencies and I have to go to them individually
Correct.
to get their videos?
Correct. It is digital evidence. So each agency would be responsible for their own digital evidence. The only time that the sheriff's office would, if they receive that evidence and uploaded it into our system as housing it, then we would disclose it. Otherwise, the individual would have to go to each agency.
Okay. I'm good, thank you.
So how are you going to do the estimate up front? So I come to you of those 4 officers, how will you estimate how much I'll pay, or do you estimate or do you guarantee we will charge you X number of dollars.
Would be an estimate.
An estimate.
Oh, it's an estimate.
It's an estimate, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Don't see any. We'll close public comment. Pleasure of the board.
I move to adopt the resolution of establishing the body worn camera redaction fees for Cowlitz County.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Okay, I see no hands and stuff. Call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also vote aye. Thanks, Bailey.
Thank you.
You made it.
Right on time.
We're right on time. That worked out, good. Okay, our last public hearing today, Office of Financial Management. Going over the budget. Yeah, the budget has, there's several items in this. If you haven't, there may be still some copies up there. This is a great synopsis of Kathy put together of how the process went. It may be of interest to you.
Okay. Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. We have several resolutions as part of this public hearing. So the first is the revised infrastructure and fiscal plan and facilities program for public facilities for Cowlitz County. And that this particular item was workshopped with the commissioners previously. I'm looking for my resolution. Hold on.
So basically, this outlines our expectations for facilities and maintenance over the next year in terms of roof repairs, HVAC system upgrades, general improvements. We had a couple of examples this morning, building a gate, those types of things are what we have outlined. We have a committee that meets on a regular basis to kind of
CIP
prioritize for
committee.
us.
Mhm.
And so they presented that to us. I think, Arn, remind me, was it about September that we had that review? September or October this fall?
Yeah, it
that
was
we
in,
looked at that
it was
plan.
in October, and then we brought it back, I believe in November, for a final review. And it's a long-term capital improvements plan. We actually do 5 years. We lay out 5 years for you. So we're asking that the resolution from 22 be rescinded, and that we adopt a new resolution for our capital improvement plan and projects that we will be undertaking in the future.
And according to the plan that we gave tentative approval to, our expectation is, if I remember, it's about 2.5 or $2.3 million in those expenditures next year. It's mapped out over a number of different years,
Yeah,
right?
for 2024, actually, the general major projects that are budgeted is 4.9 million. And it's from different sources. For example, some of it's from the general fund, some of it's from ARPA, some of it is from the real estate excise taxes.
So that would include the sewer and water systems that we operate out in the rural areas. That's what the ARPA goes for, I think.
Most of the projects on the list are, there's minor maintenance projects. I don't see any sewer
Okay.
actual projects on this
There's a
one.
different plan.
Yeah,
that
there's a
covers
different
those
plan
things,
for
yeah.
those, just like there's a different plan for roads. It has a 6-year plan, which you've previously adopted. on December 5th, I believe y'all did that. So this one covers things like roofs, parking lots, electrical, HVAC upgrades, things like that.
Yeah. Probably the big beast in this one is the Hall of Justice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Quite a few items for Hall of Justice. So I'm not sure how this goes. If you have to open a hearing for each one of these, or we go over them and then you have one public hearing for everything. I
Why don't
think
we
that's,
try and go over them and then
Yeah.
we'll entertain
Okay.
questions. If we have to go back, we can.
all right. Any more questions on the capital improvement? I'll move to the next one.
Go ahead.
Okay. The next item is to adopt, these are related to fees, coming up. Revised Cowlitz County utility rates for the water and sewer program. And so those are, I believe we workshopped those as well, and this is generally done on an annual basis to coincide with the budget and to reflect adjustments necessary for inflation and construction needs and the ability to maintain compliance with bond covenants. And so those items, I believe there's a 3% increase on these rates being proposed.
We don't operate many of these systems. We have, I think, we do a septic system Camelot out in Tootle. And do we do Riderwood or is that water? Ostrander.
Has a treatment plant.
I
The
be-
water systems are at Riderwood, Tootle, and Woodbrook.
And I believe that there's a customer base that's, I believe, close to 2,000 customers in this base only. It's small. Mhm.
It's small. And we usually end up with them because who built it and did it no longer maintains it and we end up taking it over.
And these rates would be effective starting January 1, 2024.
Okay.
Although the one exception to that summary was the Tootle system, which was done in anticipation of growth out in the Tootle area, making sure that there was a sewer system rather than septic
Out there.
So, and we've seen a considerable amount of growth that's been a result, particularly along Hall Road.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I'll move to the next one. The next is the rental rates for Cowlitz County equipment. And those as well were workshopped previously. And there's a schedule that lists out all of our equipment and the rates that would be charged for the use of those items, dump trucks, excavators, loaders, etc. And so this has been prepared by our Public Works Department. These rates would be effective January 1, 2024, and it would rescind Resolution 22-132 and put these into effect.
So again, one of the reasons we have something called equipment rental and repair is that monies used by the road department come out of the road tax, but road taxes can't be used for motor repairs on any of the other vehicles and equipment that the county owns. So for example, the equipment from up at the landfill, that can't be paid for out of road funds. So we have to just keep track of it separately and come up with the different rates that are applied.
Because the equipment's used all over the county, as well as the equipment that's used for federal purposes. You need to have a billing rate in order to affect that, to be able to bill to a grant or contract. Okay, no, if there's no questions on that, then the next item is adopting and amending the Building and Planning Department fee structure. And I know Tracy's here, but this was this was also workshopped previously. And this covers building permits and planning fees as well as GIS fees for 2024, effective 2024.
So again, on building and planning fees, we have a building and planning advisory committee that is made up of interested citizens who have reviewed those and made recommendations that we're following. And if I remember correctly, one of the special rates we're adding this time is to make it easier for folks to build ramps for disabled people, and rather than charging them full out costs, it's being taken care of at a set rate. There was one other one and I can't remember what it was. There was another
Repetitive.
habitat.
I think, yeah, I think,
Well,
I
repetitive
think if
plans.
there's plans that are similar.
Perfect. Yes, it's, good morning, Commissioners. Tracy Jackson, Building and Planning. It's for the same as plan. It's when developer, homeowner, or nonprofit agency, anybody applies for a same home on a different lot. It's a lower charge. It's $90. We've really reduced that. The other one is we've lowered the handicap ramp and made it just a fixed fee. So it's one price for anybody.
So part of our efforts to try to address affordable housing.
Absolutely. We're doing what we can. Yeah. Those are the only two. The rest are static and they've been static. This is the 5th year. We're just trying to accommodate some of the low hanging fruit, and a lot of the same as plans are with ADUs. And that is a big hot topic of permitting that we have seen. And so we're trying to reduce the rate to make it more affordable. Thank you.
Good question. The public is dying to know how many Christmas sweaters do you actually have?
I have a few. One for almost every day this week. Yes.
Hmm.
We're pretty festive downstairs this week, so come on down. We'll put a bow on your head.
So just a synopsis, the only changes to the fee schedule and that is 2 reductions. Everything else is status quo.
Yes, everything else is status quo.
Yeah.
And these would go in effect January 1, 2024.
Just another real quick question. So if I've got to get a permit for a handicap ramp, is that what I'm hearing? Is that right? You do? These are just quick questions. So do you have to pay the document recording fee for that permit? No, okay, that's just what I was wondering about. Okay.
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 And next on our list is the adoption of the biennial budget. And so I'll give you a few highlights. We started the process June. It's unbelievable. I can't believe how fast time has flown. We started this process June 21st, where we had the notice for budgets to be prepared. Our auditor sent that out to all of our departments, and our budget database was open in July. And so we started working on that, and we filed a preliminary revenue and expenditure budget September 5th as required by RCW. And then we also filed a notice of a public hearing for this biennial budget as required by RCW. And we had public workshops that covered the span of September, October, and November. And I feel like we even had some in December. So just about every month for a 3 to 4 month period. And some of the highlights, one of the major areas that we discussed and had several workshops on was the behavioral health tax. And preliminarily, we prepared budgets at the same levels that they were for 2023 budget. but also anticipated the tax being sunset in March. That was later formally adopted, approved by the commissioners, that we would sunset the 0.1% behavioral health tax on the scheduled expiration date in March 2024. There was also an approval for a motion for the county to prepare a 0.1% behavioral health tax advisory vote for the November 2024 ballot. During our equipment workshop, several items were approved for purchase. Several major pieces of equipment, 2 10-yard dump trucks, 2 tilt trailers, a D8 dozer for the solid waste. And we had a total of 7 vehicles approved, 1 for work, the field work, and 6 for sheriff patrol vehicles. We also, and later we amended that to include an additional vehicle for the detective's position that was approved. And then 2
So other than the animal control vehicles, which is a new program, the other ones are part of our programmed replacement schedule. It's not
Yes.
all new vehicles.
Yeah, just the detective's vehicle will be new, and so will the animal control. Right. And then during our technology workshop, we approved quite a few new computers, and it was primarily because they had previously been replaced and supplied by AOC, and they were no longer doing that. So about 29 computers had to be purchased just because of that program ceasing. We also approved additional new security camera system for the Hall of Justice. And also the looking into an RIFD software system for better tracking of our inmate activities was also approved. And then in our personnel workshop, we approved 8 new positions and 1 reactivated position, as well as 27 reclasses or other position changes. Those were primarily changes in fund sources. The majority of those were just changing sources. The budget provides for a total of 586 positions over all funds. And just as a note, I had a little note here that over 50% of most of our budget in our departments is salary and wages. Additional items that included in the budget were COLAs and step increases, medical premium increases for all employees, and all of our contractual agreements with unions. And we still have several of those are pending and yet to be decided.
Do you remember how many union contracts we worked on this year?
I think
Jessica would know for sure, but
I think she had at least 6, if I'm correct.
it was a heavy year.
And so, so anyway, I anticipate, like I said yesterday, I think we will have budget amendments at the time that we get those agreements finalized. I'm sure we'll have budget amendments. We also looked at the levies. The board voted to not take the 1% allowed increase or the banked increase for our levies from prior years for both general fund and road fund, and no shifts in the road fund were approved. I don't think that's been done in a couple of consecutive years. But we did take new construction and refund levy was included in our certified levy amounts. And that was done in a workshop as well as a formal public hearing. And then, of course, we've had some increases in our general fund, but we've also had some decreases in our general fund revenues. And we also anticipate that our total proposed expenditures for our general fund will be 73 million and 74 million for 24 and 25 respectively. Additionally, we have another item that's unusual is ARPA funding. We still have those funds available and we've budgeted at 19.6 million. It's included in our budget for 2024. It may span over longer than that, more than likely, but we went ahead and budgeted the full 19.6 million 2024 to give us flexibility. And we're facing some challenges, of course, in the upcoming year, facility needs. It seems that our deferred maintenance is an issue on existing facilities. And that's a growing need for funding. But we have as we've addressed here in the infrastructure, we hope that you're approving the budget for several of those projects to take place over the next few years. Continued structural deficit between our revenues and expenditures because of the small growth in sales tax and limited growth in our property taxes. We need to be conservative and keep monitoring all of our budgets for 2024 and 25. We have a total of a $58 million revenue for the general fund. But the good news is we have sufficient fund balance to balance our budget. And we also will be able to maintain between our fund balance and general fund and our budget stabilization fund more than a 1 month reserve balance. It's about a month and a half from my estimates. And as I said, we'll continue to monitor revenues and expenditures for the next year. We're looking at the state economic outlook is good, but it's slowing and over the 3-year outlook period, and monitoring our ARPA funds to make sure we fully utilize those. And so I thank the commissioners and all of our departments for accommodating all of the workshops that we had that were necessary for us to get to this point today. And I recommend that the board open the public meeting and invite public comment and approve the budget for 2024, 2025.
Okay. I'll open the questions up here and then we'll.
No, I'll cap it off with that it's an extensive effort, and as you thank us, I thank you in particular.
Yeah.
Actually, I thank the entire staff. This was very useful, illuminating, and that wouldn't happen without an instigator.
Yeah, we had a lot of departments in and sometimes those conversations, you're talking money, so they can be a little bit tough, but it was good to have. Those are good kind of conversation that helps us understand it on both sides of the deal. So it was a good process.
And
it
wouldn't be a full statement from me if I didn't show you that the glass is half empty, which is, our costs go up far more than the caps we're allowed on taxation. I don't think that's a problem, but it's a reality that as we go forward, we cannot be too careful about what we take on. With a little bit of concern, we all must continue to be very careful about the expenditures. I still see a problem there, and the unknown thing is Olympia. God knows what the next thing is that they're going to foist upon us.
Yeah.
So the commissioner just accused you of being an instigator. I think the better term is facilitator.
Yeah, I hope I'm a
Because
facilitator.
she's helping us grapple with these decisions. The fact of the matter is, though, we are ready to approve a budget that for the general fund is $15 to $16 million more expenditures than we have in revenue coming in. That's an unfunded balance. Now, a portion of that expenditure is what we set aside as a reserve. Our policy says we've got to set aside at least a minimum of 1 month's salary. Accountants would recommend 2 months and 3 months, but 1 month is our minimum, and we've definitely hit that. One of the other things that we have come to rely on is that while we may have budgeted for
586 positions.
586 positions, typically the departments are generally running about 10 to 15% below the staffing level. They can't hire enough people to fill all those positions.
Correct.
That means that at the end of the year, those positions that remain unfilled are in that gap that we have.
And we also have in place, and in order to help us with our budget, we have in place budget restrictions that those dollars directed for labor and wages and overtime cannot be spent anywhere else in the budget. And so that provides us a mechanism to recoup some of the budget that was set aside in January.
So one of the biggest, I guess, surprises to me after close to 50 years of being in public service is this amount of money we received this year from the federal government. When you add up all the various programs, and we talked about 3 of them earlier this morning, federal government has provided $50 million of assistance to cope with the pandemic. And we still have about 19 million of that hasn't been spent yet. We've allocated just about all of it.
Yes.
And it just takes a while for plans to get implemented. The dollars have to be fully allocated by the end of next year, and they have to be completely spent by the end of 2026. So there's this extra amount as well. That's kind of, if it's off the books in terms of our budget. I mean, it is budgeted, but it's handled separately. So it's always an interesting process because of all of the ending fund balances we have to have, and year after year. We also, the other thing is, we also have fantastic staff who consistently underspend, and Kathy mentioned earlier that we have a built-in rainy day fund that recognizes the underspending that's done in the various departments, and we capture that and set it aside, and it takes a unanimous vote of the commission to spend out of that budget stabilization fund. So we've done some really important things to recognize we do have a balanced budget under the law, but there are some inherent risks that we have to be constantly vigilant about taking on additional programs, as well as making sure we're hiring the people that need to be hired and doing what we can to continue to provide the services the taxpayers expect.
Okay. I'll open public comment.
Okay, so what got me to shoot right up here was Dennis had mentioned that there's a shortfall in the general fund. Now, looking back on the fact that you guys made the right decision in letting the mental health tax sunset. However, there was a motion put up to write some sort of advisory vote, I think is what it was referred to come up in the next November ballot. Now, honestly, is that a good use of staff time? Is that even worth the paper of putting it into the voters pamphlet? Honestly, you're going to ask people if they want another tax or something. I'm not even sure what the wording of that would be. But to me, I would say, let's just drop that issue altogether. Let's just sunset the mental health tax. If some group wants to come up and do all the work of writing it and putting it on the ballot somehow, like people do with an initiative or something, then let that happen. But for the county to spend money, to have our staff who are already tasked with so many things to do, and they're doing a great job. But to write some senseless thing to put into the voters pamphlet seems to me to be another waste of money once again. You know what I'm saying? So Why don't we just drop that idea and let the staff do the business that the staff is here to do? You know, let the departments manage their departments.
So a quick question for one of the two of you. What latitude does the public have? Can they put together an initiative that we have to place on the ballot?
Because we are not a home rule charter county, the citizens do not have the right of initiative or referendum. So no, they cannot initiate it.
So
it
they
has to
never
be
had any
It has
say-
to be an advisory vote if we have a vote, it has to be considered an advisory vote.
Yeah, the part of the argument you didn't make is we have witnessed how government will nickel and dime you to death. And whenever people look at taxes, it always seems like it's free money because it's somebody else that's paying for it. So as long as upfront we say it's for a good cause, we can typically get a positive response. What you were asking for is if the public really truly wants this, then they should put the effort out to go after it and present it to us in a form that really takes everybody into account. That is to say, with a signature procedure of some kind. I agree with you, but apparently we're not able to do that.
No, even better then. We can just quit thinking about it altogether. That would be the best part. So I would say let that one die. You know, what's the point? You're gonna write some advisory vote thing in there that isn't really gonna carry any weight anyway. I mean, really, it's not gonna make it come back. I think it's gone, you know, let it die and bury it. And don't waste more time and energy and money on the thing. It wasn't right in the first place. We've already established that. It doesn't, you know, I could go on as I have in the past. Taxation is theft. Let's just let this tax go. Just let it go.
It sounds almost musical. Let it go.
Green light.
It's just as well anyway. I wanted to just ask you quickly, how much is the COVID money still that's left in the COVID fund, did you say?
ARPA funds, 19.6 million is in our budget for 2024.
Okay, and I don't know if there's latitude about what you can do with it, but could we give the citizens a rebate in Cowlitz County? That was my next question.
Yeah, it's been allocated to the projects that are allowed under the fund.
I think the specific answer to your question is no. The money is specifically constrained to be spent in certain ways. Specifically excluded is to make what amounts to a tax rebate. Because I looked into it, it's the kind of money where essentially from property taxes, we get 10 million every 6 months. So I thought, why don't we at least take 10 million, send it back to those people who had paid the taxes? But immediately I got slapped. Well, it's, yeah.
Can you hear me now? On the AOC, procured by AOC, what was that again, the AOC mean?
That's the administrative office of the courts. So
Oh.
it's a state agency. Doesn't have anything to do with any particular member of Congress.
Okay, because I thought you said something about like out of control. Anyway, and then what's the HOJ?
Hall of Justice.
That's what I thought. And then it says, okay, after the AOC, it says additionally, a new security camera system was approved for HOJ and an inmate RIFD software system for better tracking of activities. What specifically is that? The IFD. Isn't that some kind of radio?
Yeah,
the-
that's what the
the-
RF stands for, radio frequency ID. And
So,
It's a barcode that's on a wristband that the inmates would have, and they're able to hit the barcode when there's certain types of activities and keep track of those in an electronic format versus hand systems or manual systems.
so we are a product. Thank you. And then the 586 positions for all funds. So those people that are getting these positions, aren't they going to be paid out of taxes?
There, the 586 positions are all of our funds. We have about 32 special funds in addition to the general fund. So they're across all of the funds.
So isn't everybody that gets paid in these administrative positions, aren't they like that money's coming from the state from our taxes?
No, not all positions.
Most?
Primarily, yes. Most of our positions are general fund. There's about 300, I'll get the number for you in just a moment. There's 363 positions that are on general fund, and most of those positions are primarily funded with property taxes as well as other taxes, as well as sales tax. So
Taxes,
primarily
yeah.
sales tax.
Yeah, taxes on taxes on taxes on taxes.
hey, one thing,
Yes.
if I might comment, we use the term tax pretty liberally. And many taxes are just arbitrary. We're gonna tax sales for something totally unrelated to sales. But the road fund, which is substantial, actually is to be used on the roads. So I wouldn't call that as much a tax as a use fee, a use fee, because people use it. That's one example. Another one is our landfill is actually being operated like a business, and that brings in quite a bit. And I would not call that taxpayer funded positions. In fact, the landfill funds some of the general fund, so.
Well, it's like I want to come to as many meetings here as I can.
I'm
And I
sorry.
have been grounded because of no fuel. The gas goes up and it goes down, goes up and it goes down. And so it's like, I just have to, like, if I'm home, it's like then do some research or reading on, factual information. But it's just like, this really stinks that I have to sit home because of all the crap that's going on, excuse me, that I can't afford to drive here. And anyway, and I don't do computers. But this RIFD stuff is like, it's just like calling us another product, and it's getting closer to, well, I think you know what, I think you can read between the lines. But anyway, thank you for your time.
Any other questions, comments on the budget? Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, for example, the ARPA funds, the 8 million?
19.6.
19.6 million. Where are those funds stored right now? Are those something that you have in a savings account somewhere, so it's actually producing some type of interest rate while you haven't spent them?
Yeah, it's part of their investment pools, and
Mhm.
they earn
is.
off of those that are sitting until they're used.
It's currently invested, as he said, in our pool and investment pool. And for this year alone, we have received about over 700,000 of investment income from those funds until they're utilized. And prior year, it was about 317,000.
The county treasurer is in charge of those
Yeah.
investments.
Right.
So besides that one specific group of funds, are there other general funds that are a part of that investment pool?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
trying to remember how big our investment pool is.
It's somewhere about 375.
Yeah, it's over 300, yeah, 300 million.
Yeah, about 300.
So, and it varies over time because, you know, we get property taxes twice a year.
Right.
So there's a lot of it that's being saved and invested until we need it month by month. But it's not just Cowlitz County, it's all the,
Yeah, it's
all the
both.
various local jurisdictions who have money that they collect. And it's invested and she does a great job of investing it for a good return.
Okay, so I think I heard him say 300,000. You said 300 million.
So
300 million, did I say thousand? I meant 300
yeah,
million.
it's 300
Okay.
million
It's invested,
or-
but
That's a
that-
hell of that's a hell of a
Sorry.
difference.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, and like you said, it's county funds as well as special district funds.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
Which
questions?
doesn't include the community network funds that we just took out.
27,000 that went away.
Yeah.
See no other,
We have an elected official in the office. Maybe she might be interested in having comments. Emily? We do.
Actually, if you want, Dennis, I can ask Emily a question.
There you go.
does,
She'll have to come up though.
are we still doing budget stuff here?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not our budget. Recently you heard Carolyn ask for somebody to write the rebuttal or not, the against and possibly a rebuttal. And that's for management and operation the levy from the school district. Now, if the property, that is a strict percentage that comes through, or is that the dollar amount?
So when the school districts put it on the ballot,
Are
it
you
is,
on?
yeah. When the school districts put it on the ballot, it's for a dollar amount. They
It-
project what they think the percentage would be, but, or the rate would be, but
So if the property values go up, the percentage they charge goes down or that they
Mhm.
get paid. Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
it only collects what they pass.
Yeah.
So the dollar amount is the primary driver. The rate is just a reflection of
Mhm.
how that works. Yeah. Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. See no others. We'll close public hearing. Now entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the various recommendations from the budget office in order to adopt this year's biennial budget.
Perfect. Got a motion on the floor? I'll take one last look, make sure. Not seeing any hands, nobody approaching. We'll ask for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Phew, finally, huh? Yeah. Thank you for all your work. I mean, we've said it multiple times, but we truly do thank you. Okay, we're out of public meeting. We are open for public comment if we have some. If we don't, a reminder today at 1:30. Let me make sure I'm on the right day. Today at 1:30, we have the Cowlitz Chaplaincy. Tomorrow at 1:30, we have Developmental Disabilities and Humane Society contract. Next week, we have nothing. There's no agenda next week. You get the week off. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me? I just wanted to remind people that with all the new campaigning going on this coming year, to please read this book. I'm trying to get it to where you can see it. There. Well, can you see it very well? Can you guys see it?
If
I
you-
am. There we go. Okay. Anyway, The Real Anthony Fauci by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It's not someone's opinion. There's many doctors, experts in different fields about viruses and all that. Anyway, and this book tells the truth about how evil Anthony Fauci is. And so I really, really urge everyone to read this before they get any more vaccine or, excuse me, experimental gene therapy, whatever you want to call them. Anyway, please don't take any more of them because he's put bad things in them. And it's in this book, you will learn the truth. And for those that have done it, I believe there's ways that they're working on to try to get the bad stuff out of your system. And all we can do is pray for those people. And if we, have anything good to share with them, as they will listen, we'd be glad to help. So anyway, and thank you and God bless.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.